On the program today, we are going to address the age-old question, are your kids smarter than you? Hey guys and gals, boys and girls, tubers of the U. Hope you're having a fantastic day. I certainly am. Today on the program, we are going to talk about kids. Now, I'm not talking little bitty kids. I'm not talking toddlers. I'm talking young adults. I'm talking late teens, early 20s, that group of wonderful human beings known as millennials. Now, the reason I bring this up is, I don't know if you saw this, but there was a recent report that showed that since the Industrial Revolution, which took place roughly around the early to mid 1800s, since the Industrial Revolution, every generation has gotten progressively smarter. Now, I don't know if they took my DNA into account because I come from a long line of dumbasses, but I digress. What they're saying is that since the 1800s, due to technology and advances in science and that sort of thing, every generation has gotten smarter and smarter until here we are today with millennials who will tell you if you ask them, they are, bar none, the smartest generation ever. Yeah. So the reason I bring this up is a recent, what I call a teaching moment with my daughter, Sierra, who is 21. She is a senior in college, full ride scholarship, straight A student, never made anything less than a 100, full ride, all kinds of beta club, theta club, all kinds of numbers and initials right there in college that she's involved with. Probably one of the smartest young women you will ever have the pleasure of meeting. Now, it came to pass recently that Sierra had to fill out a tax return. Now, she worked last year. She is an accounting major, a senior accounting major at a major university here in Alabama, plans to get her master's degree and her PhD. Or maybe it's just her master's degree and her CPA. CPA, PhD, some of those letters. It's going to be really cool stuff no matter what. So again, just a very brilliant child, really up on technology, smartphones, tablets. You walk into her room, she's got a computer here and a smartphone here and a tablet there. And, is just going to town on technology. Smart kid, okay? Way from a book learning point of view, a lot smarter than her old man. So she does an internship last year, and she has to fill out a tax return this year. So I go to the mailbox every day. I get the mail, and I come to her and I say, "Hey, here is your a W-2. You need to fill out a tax form because you made money last year, so you have to file income tax." Okay, so here's where the teaching moment began. Now, let me say something really quickly about teaching moments. You've all heard the term. Basically, a teaching moment is that moment in which you, as the wise, higher intelligent or more intelligent, more mature, usually parent or adult, you're going to have a teaching moment with a young person. You're going to teach them something that will go with them through their life. So, she has to fill out a tax return, and I figure it's a teaching moment. And naturally, the first thing that she says is, "Can't you do it?" Because she is used to wrapping daddy around her finger and having me do things for her. But again, teachable moment. No, I'm not going to do this. You have to do this yourself. You are a senior at a major university. You are on scholarship, and you're going to do this on your own. Now, we had a previous teaching moment when she first started college because she did get full ride scholarships. Well, she needed to write a thank you letter to the people that funded part of her scholarship. So she comes into my office right here in the house. She sits in that chair right over there and says, "I have to write a thank you note to the people who are paying for part of my college." Millennial. So I'm like, okay, well, that's great. How do I write a thank you note? Okay, not surprisingly, she'd never written one of these before and she didn't really know how to go about it. So I said, well, you just say, thank you for your wonderful contribution to my education. I'm majoring in accounting and yada, yada, yada. So she begrudgingly wrote this letter, and then she comes back into my office and she's holding, the piece of paper out, and she's like, so what do I do with it? It's like it's supposed to magically transport to these people who have funded part of her scholarship. And I said, well, you fold it up nice and neatly and you put it in an envelope, or as we say here in the South, envelope, and you send it off. And she goes, well, how do I do that? So I remove an envelope from the drawer, and I say, well, you just address this, you put the letter inside, you stick on a stamp, and you're good to go. So I swear to God, she's sitting here with the pen at the ready on the envelope, and she goes, okay, how do you address an envelope? Did I tell you that she won a full ride academic scholarship to college? So we have to have a teaching moment. I teach her how to address the envelope and how to fold the paper nice and neat, trifold, put it inside, lick it shut, which she thought was just the grossest thing she'd ever been asked to do, and put a stamp on it, which I provided. And I said, okay, you mail it to them. To which she replied, can you mail it? It didn't occur to me that she didn't realize that brick thing out by the drive is the mailbox. So anyway, I digress as I usually do. So that was one of our teaching moments, but this one came at tax time. And again, I gave her the W-2. I said, okay, it's really easy. Here, I even printed out the form for you. All you do is transpose information. And I've already taught you how to do an envelope and put on a stamp. And I showed you where the mailbox was. If you've forgotten, I'll put it in your phone for you, and you can GPS that sumbitch. So I leave her to it. Well, it wasn't probably, 2 or 3 minutes later, she comes in and she goes, and she does this. She sounds like a dolphin in distress. So, teachable moment. Being the responsible father that I am, teachable moment. I'm going to teach her how to file this tax form. So I said, look, here's all you do. It's really simple. If I can do it, you can do it. See the numbers here? See where it says gross wages and federal tax withheld? You simply transpose those numbers to the appropriate slot on that form. I turned my back and she's like, and she goes, okay. And she's looking at the form and she goes, name? To which I reply, you do know your name, right? Yes. Wonder of wonders, she did know her name. Middle initial. I'm like, quit asking me, just fill the thing out. And so she completed, and she was having issues. So I did what I always do, and this is where I always fall short of teachable moments. She was asking me about every slot, and I finally just went, give me the pen and let me show you. And so I showed her, and she's like, well, show me again. And once I completed the form, it occurred to me that the teachable moment had pretty much backfired on me because my highly intelligent daughter, who really is smarter than me, had taught me once again that teachable moments are just a waste of time when it comes to her. So as usually happens, she had conned me into completing the form. And but I did say, okay, remember how to fold it up and she owed tax. She owed $142 and change. And I said, you owe $142. For what? And she got all black girl on me. It was just kind of scary. What do I owe them? They've already taken money out of my check. Why do I owe them money? My little anarchist asked in a really ticked off manner. And I said, well, honey, they didn't withhold enough. Well, that's not my fault. And then I realized she would make an excellent attorney. I mean, she's going to be a really good accountant, but she would just be a killer attorney because she would stand up in court and argue by saying things like, well, it wasn't my fault. So whatever. Do you have any idea how many legal precedents have been set just by the term whatever? Yeah, but I'm still digressing. So I said, well, you owe the money, so you just need to write a check and stick it in there when you mail it off. Well, I don't have checks. And then it occurred to me that she has a checking account. She has a savings account. The kid even has a money market account. But she doesn't have checks. She has never had to write a check. So I'm thinking, teachable moment. And then I thought, no, just write the check. And so I said, well, I can write the check and you can pay me back. And she goes, that's great. Just transfer it out of my account. Now, here's this young teenage girl. Well, she's 21. She's not a teenager anymore, telling me to write the check to pay her income tax and then just transfer it out of her account. Technology just abounds. So, of course, that's what I did. So was it truly a teachable moment? Did she learn anything other than new ways to manipulate the old man into doing stuff that she doesn't really want to do? I think if there was a teachable moment, it was probably me that was getting schooled. So that's why this recent report that I saw that says generations since the industrial age, every generation has gotten smarter than the last. Now, if you don't remember the industrial age, and boy, you're old if you do, it was in the 1800s, carried through into the Industrial Revolution. And what it was is when it was that point in time when things started getting mechanized. They started creating machines to do things that had been done for eons by hand, like sewing and knitting and harvesting crops and that sort of thing. And this was back in the good old days, which, by the way, why is it every time you see a picture of someone from the good old days, they don't look very happy? I have a hard time believing those days were really very good. And here's the other thing. You see photos back then of families that have 10, 12, 15 kids. And if it was so hard, why did they procreate so much? And 3 words, lack of cable. But I digress again. So this got me to thinking about all of the things that, I'm 57. I'm on the tail end of the baby boomers, things that were relevant to me and things that I had to know how to do growing up when I was her age, 25, 30 years ago, are not so relevant to this generation. So the question becomes, are generations getting smarter, or is technology causing generations to actually be dumber or more dumb? Dumber, more dumb, whatever. The rise in technology, in my opinion, drives down the level of intelligence. Think about things that when you were if you're my age, back in the good old days, things that were considered high tech. For example, the rotary telephone. Now, you probably grew up with one of these either hanging on the wall or on the desk. The rotary phone, it had the thing you stick your finger in and you had to manually do this, and you hated anyone who had a 0 in their number because, and if you screwed up, there was no backspace. You had to stick your finger in there and do that completely again. If my daughter saw a rotary phone today, she wouldn't know what it was. But we grew up on rotary phones, and then there were touch-tone phones, and eventually cordless phones, and just the progression of technology. Other things that I can remember beepers? Pagers. Do you remember when beepers came out? The only people that had them were cops and drugs dealers in the beginning, but eventually we all had pagers, as if we were so freaking important that we needed to be constantly on call. Okay, if you're a heart surgeon, I could understand you having a pager, but I was a redneck from Alabama. I had a pager. If you need me and it can't wait, I want you to call my pager. Now, here's the kicker. When pagers first came out, there were no cellular phones. So if you got paged or beeped, you had to pull over on the side of the road and you had to use what was called a phone booth. Phone booth. It was this glass enclosure with a rotary or even a touch-tone phone installed. You would walk in, close the glass door, and you had to put money in it. Can you believe that? They would not bill you monthly. You had to put dimes and quarters into this phone if you were beat and paged and wanted to call someone. Another thing was the manual typewriter. Remember the manual typewriter? I took typing my senior year in high school, 1978, and we had these Royal manual typewriters that, it wasn't like a keyboard now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It just touch it and it magically puts a letter. No, you had to slam that some bitch. You had to, and I hated people who could do that because I was always a hunt and pecker. Wait a minute, that didn't sound right. I typed with one finger because you would literally build up muscles typing on these old typewriters. In fact, at my school, they combined typing and PE because it was such physical activity hitting those fucking keys. Yeah. So if my daughter saw that now, she wouldn't know what to think of it. The damn thing weighed, 75 pounds. They called it a portable typewriter. Well, it was portable if you had a buddy who was not busy and would help you carry it wherever it needed to go. And you remember, this is the thing I remember. I'm getting all excited by the nostalgia. If you made a mistake when you were typing, you had to use this stuff, kids, called paper made out of trees. It's an amazing process, but you would roll the paper in the roller of the typewriter. You would slam the keys to get the words that you wanted, and it made this big clacking sound. But if you messed up, guess what? There was no backspace. If you screwed up, you had to get this stuff. It came in a little bottle. It was called whiteout, which nowadays whiteout is I think is a racial slur. You need to get the white out, right? So, but back then it was like a little paintbrush. It was white, and had a little brush, and you would carefully paint over the letters that you had messed up, blow on it. You wanted it to dry, give it a minute, and then you would go back and type over it. Now, let me tell you this. I got much more adept in the use of whiteout than I actually did typing. I think I got a D in typing / gym class and a B in whiteout art history. We combined those things together. So just all kinds of things like that kids nowadays have no clue. They've got it so easy with their smartphones, which you don't even have to tap unless you're playing a game. It's mostly a slide. It's mostly a tap with your thumbs. You don't have to do it very hard. They wouldn't know what to do with a typewriter. They wouldn't know how to use a rotary phone. And God forbid, my daughter have to be subject to what I was when I was a kid when it came to television. Do you remember when we only had 3 channels on television? 3 channels, and they came on at sunup, they went off the air at midnight. There was no 24-hour TV. And if the president was on, you were screwed. There was no flipping over to the other 4,000 channels that you had. We had 3 channels. I remember when television was black and white. Again, what's wrong with the TV? There's no color. Well, it's a black and white TV. Look, the president's on. Nowadays, my daughter has, 500 channels, not to mention Netflix and Hulu and Amazon. And it's very much on demand, entertainment on demand. So I don't know if kids are getting smarter or if it's just technology is making it such that even dumb kids can use Netflix or use a smartphone. There's a wonderful commercial, and now a guy goes, I got a smartphone, but it ain't made me any smarter. Anyway, I digress, but I started thinking about this stuff, and I went on YouTube and I did some searches. Little things that you and I used to take for granted there, Mom and Dad, our kids don't know how to do. Now, I've already talked about, Sierra didn't know how to address an envelope. If you go to YouTube and you type in how to address an envelope, you're going to find 20,000 videos. 20,000 videos on how to address an envelope. If you want to use that, remember the phone book. Remember the phone book? Remember the phone book, ladies and gentlemen? If you wanted to know a number or a name or an address, you couldn't just hop on Google. There was no Google back then. If you walked up to my old man in the 60s and said, hey, do you Google? He would knock you on your ass. So there was no Google, but we had phone books, and we had the white pages and yellow pages, and you had to look them up. I went to YouTube and I searched on how to use a phone book, and there are 68,000 videos on how to use a phone book. Another thing, neckties. Now, my daughter has already got a summer internship with a wonderful company, and so she's going to have to dress up. Now, she's not a boy, thank God. Thank you, Jesus. But young men don't know how to tie neckties anymore. If you go to church on Sunday, you're going to see young men who have either had their tie tied by their mom and dad or went to YouTube. Because if you go to YouTube and you type in how to tie a necktie, 8 million videos. 8 million videos on how to tie a freaking necktie. That is 8 million teachable moments. Just amazing. You know, I talked about writing a check. These millennials have no idea what checks are. They don't write things. It's all electronic. It's either debit cards or Visa and MasterCard. Nowadays, you know, you just walk up and swipe your phone there, and you're ready to go. You don't have to write a check. If you go to YouTube and you type in how to write a check, you want to guess? 9,230,000 videos and counting on how to write a check. So are kids smarter than us, mom and dad, or is technology making them dumber? But thank the Lord for YouTube, because it's full of teachable moments. So, you know, whose fault is it, and where do we go from here? You know, they say that every few years now, technology just replaces itself. And in 20 years, the things that are high tech to us today will no longer exist. They would have been outdated, antiquated, laughed off the market. The smartphone of today is the manual typewriter of tomorrow. So 20 years from now, I'm probably not going to be here. And if I am, you know, God help Sierra, because that's part of the deal. I'm doing all this so she'll take care of me in my old age. But think about this. In 20 years, if all the technology that we know today has been replaced by something else, that means in 20 years, our kids are going to be explaining to their kids how to do things like use a smartphone. They're going to be nostalgic, thinking about, you know, the smartphones and the Wi-Fi and the Julios and the Hulus and the Googleos and the self-driving cars and all that sort of thing. So maybe that is the teachable moment for us old-timers, mom and dad, is in 20 years, our kids will have the same trouble and task of explaining things to their kids as we try to do to them. So, wow. I don't know. What's the moral of this? The moral, I think, is that teachable moments are highly overrated, because usually I'm the only one getting took to school. So, hey, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're not going to do anything. You're just going to love them, hug them, and pray to God that they take care of you in your old age. Hey, that's going to do it for this program. If you enjoyed this rant, and God help you if you didn't, do me a favor, click that subscribe button down there. Now, when you click on that subscribe button, you're going to see a little bell. I want you to click on the bell, because that way, every time I release a new video, you will get notified. And God help you if you miss this. This is an entertainment value, and the wisdom that I bring on a weekly basis is just amazing. It's a teachable moment. All right, guys, that's going to do it. Click like, ring my bell, find me on Facebook. Hey, do me a favor, leave me a comment down below. If you've had a teachable moment that either worked or didn't with your kids, let me know. Kids, you let me know if you know what a manual typewriter is. I'm going to hold my breath and wait for that comment. All right, that's going to do it. I'm going to go do something before it becomes antiquated, and I encourage you to do the same thing. All right. Hey, don't forget, Have your pets spayed and neutered. Even 20 years from now, pets will need to be spayed or neutered unless we are at the point where we have created a genetic hybrid that doesn't reproduce. Hey, if that's the case, maybe we can use that on some humans. Maybe our kids aren't smarter than us. Maybe.
This is ancient technology to me.
I've never used the phone book before. I've always just used the internet.